You're now plugged into the Delphi podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Tommy, one of the founding partners at Delphi Ventures, and I'm with Himanshu, who is a core contributor to Sentient. Sentient is a major crypto AI project, and I'm happy to have you on. How are you?
Doing well, Tommy. Nice to be here.
Himanshu, I have to ask out of the gate, an $85 million raise led by Peter Thiel's fund. It's so much money. How do you think about spending that? It's a wild amount of money, right?
It's a lot of money, and we hope we can use it the way we want to use it to make difference in community build OpenAI. And it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money for this new AI world, mainly because AI, both compute and talent, the two resources that make AI, are very expensive. So
It is.
yeah, so it's all for good cause.
No, it definitely is. I mean, just looking at those two worlds, right? Like Pondering Durian on our side released these really well written crypto AI reports, and he calls out just the hundreds of billions of dollars Web 2 companies have to build out AI, right? So when you compare that to the 85 mil, to your point, it sounds like a lot in crypto, but it doesn't sound like a lot in Web 2 terms.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the moment one has the conviction that the models that they're building can be scaled to that extent, then even we need to have that kind of capital available to scale further. So it's just the beginning, Tommy. It's surprising, but it's just the beginning. We will need a lot more capital going forward.
I No, I don't doubt it. Well, we'll come back to that in a little bit, but let's start a bit about yourself and your journey, and sort of maybe if you could parlay that into Sentient and how you got here, that'd be awesome.
Right. So I'm a career academic. I've been in academia for a long time now. I did my PhD in the US. I did my undergrad at IIT Delhi and in Institute of Technology Delhi, and then I was in the US for about 8 9 years. Then I was a faculty in Institute of Science in Bangalore, which is a top place in India. And around that time, I participated. My PhD is mostly on theory side in information theory and cryptography, but and that's what I teach. But for the last decade or so, I've been building different systems, blockchain related and AI related. 4 years back, I reached out to my postdoc mentor, Pramod, that I'm all tenured now and I should do something more exciting. I've done a lot of system building, so we started this project called Witness Chain, which is I think it's a regular crypto project, but it's a crazy project for a person who was just entering crypto, that we are building decentralized 5G network, and I have actually built 5G networks. So even without decentralization, it's a bit crazy, but to build it in a decentralization manner and combining crypto with 5G was very cool. So basically, from there, my trajectory of building new use cases on bringing new use cases to crypto, the regular traditional Web2 use cases to crypto, became my mission of sorts. At different level, I played that role at government level here in India earlier, and that's the mission I'm after. And the natural candidate for my mission is this AI as a use case. And Deepin is a hard use case in terms of demand, although it's exciting. But AI, the interesting part is that everyone wants it, and so from there we came to this journey of how to bring AI use case to crypto, and in this case, the marriage is quite natural. So that's what I've been doing, and that's how I read Sentient. I can say more about
That's
how
awesome.
exactly Sentient happened, but this is my brief journey.
No, it's a good journey. I got a lot of questions. So, how did your past kind of thinking around AI influence your decision to jump into crypto AI? Like, what were you working on? What were you researching on the AI side before you decided to fully send it with?
Right, right. So at Witness Chain, our focus was on this watches and the proof system. So we started exploring AI, crypto AI, from the side of verifiable compute and optimistic verifiable compute. That was clear to us early on, even 2022, that this verifiable compute that people are looking at for the L2 and that kind of use cases will also make way for verifiable compute needed for AI. So that was sort of an academic research project which Witness Chain was doing and we were doing. And even before that, I've been a user of AI and builder of AI. I did a lot of work in federated learning, which is my background in AI and decentralized AI, training for federated learning, training using personalized data and that kind of stuff. And from there, verifiable compute And starting from there, we grew it into something where we started understanding that all these are important tech pieces, but something much more important is needed. Something much bigger is at stake. That one needs a counterpart of centralized AI, and it should have the same functionality, but it should not have the same centralization. That's the basic statement that evolved after this different tool technology pieces we are working on. We felt that no matter what you do at the end, all those things in crypto AI will lead to this counterpart to centralized AI. And why don't start from this side rather than building the tools first? Both approaches are interesting. So we started then on this side and left the tool part for others to do.
Was it hard to land on the initial thesis for Sentient? Like, you're with your team, you're going back and forth, you're trying to figure out what you want to build. You all have background in wireless and DePIN and AI and crypto, like, and you're trying to figure out what part of the stack in crypto AI you want to work on. You could build foundational models, you can do inference, you could do decentralized, storage, you could do a whole bunch of things, right? Labeling, whole nine yards, data. How'd you decide to want to create a counterbalance to centralized AI? How'd you land there?
Okay, that's a great question, and that's where Sandeep enters my life. So
He is
because
convincing. I love him.
yeah, no, convincing. Of course, he's convincing for sure. But more than that, he helped us focus on this clarity. That why don't we start? Like all of us are, we met through Shriram. So his point was that all of us are people who have good things to do in life. So if we want to solve AI problems, why are we picking up the pieces which are important, which will eventually be important? But what will make it important is that there is an alternative to centralize first. Otherwise, none of it is needed, right? If you keep on building this peripheral technology, the system doesn't start, right? So we started thinking first principle about what is it that why are we uncomfortable about this, and why are we not just happy with whatever OpenAI is giving us? What's wrong with that, right? Why do anything? Do we have too much time at our hand? So that's the thesis, and from there it became very clear. Maybe in a week, we were the first week of interaction itself, it was very clear that the real thing is to have a counterpart of centralized AI, and it should work as nicely as centralized AI. No compromise on that. I mean, that's initial. That's a speech to ourselves. It's not a necessary thing, but we think let's start by thinking that we love the performance of centralized AI. Maybe we don't like how it's centered, how it's censored. Maybe we don't like how things are incentivized, but we love the performance. So can we get the same performance in an alternative manner, where the same centralizing forces do not apply? Especially the centralizing economic forces and alignment forces do not apply. That's where it started, and mostly this came out of Sandeep, Pramod, and I discussing the version of our ideas that we had, and Sandeep had already been discussing with Kenzie some other formats of that similar idea in a different way. So I always think that when people discuss, the ideas keeps evolving automatically. So for example, I feel that in every conversation, what I say will change because the conversation influences me. So by the time we were done with that idea, it was the same idea, but for sure it was quite different when we started discussing. And at the end, it was the same idea. We started feeling we were talking about the same thing.
I mean, you have an incredible group of experienced builders around you, right? Like Sandeep, co-founder of Polygon, speaks for itself, right? You have Sriram from Eigenlayer. You have Promote internally, like very experienced on wireless tech, 4G, stuff like that. You have Kenzie, you have yourself. I'm curious though, like when you're debating like we want an alternative to OpenAI to centralization, is it like an emotional kind of view, like, hey, we don't want centralization to control our lives? Is it that you think innovation can happen faster with an open economy? Like what are the core tenets for the reason you're building something open versus just relying on centralization, right? And I'm sure it's different for everyone involved, but
Right.
curious where you guys landed there.
Right. So that's a great question, actually. So who has what stand on this part, right? And by the way, Shriram is an advisor for the project, and early on there were a lot of interactions with him. But it's not like he's daily discussing the whole
Of
thesis.
course.
Uh, especially with all the things here busy with this these days. So with so for Sandeep, Pramod, and I think one thing on which all of us were quite convinced on from day one is the maybe I don't remember the word before it, but this part was very convincing, on which all three of us agree that this is one of the more important things, is the participation in that economy, and for different reasons, for very different reasons. Sandeep, because he has seen a lot in his life, he really believes in this kind of economy where the if you can contribute, then you can make it really big in that economy, right? That's one part of it. That can the AI economy more participatory. And Pramod, I don't know if you know about this, and he has, in fact, our deep in story is like that. And Pramod has had long time thesis on these kind of things. Even his previous work in blockchains, he's always thinking about this economic angle to it. And I have actually already built such models of participatory economy. In the Indian context, also, I've put up some standards which are towards that. And there's something very close to me about how, in fact, like on a different podcast, we should have it. I think the way we learn economy, it differentiates entrepreneur and employees in such a fundamental manner. And it's like an employee is a very passive entity. It's like jobs are needed for something, and these guys are, they either consume or invest. An entrepreneur is the big guy, and he's the guy who's balancing this and that. And I've always felt that these boundaries are very theoretical, because in my lifetime, I have not felt it, in the sense I never categorize myself as A or B. And and this is because maybe some privileges there in our lifestyle. But I never felt it that way, that it should be there. And in fact, only when I grew up, I realized that these boundaries are so strong and have to be shaken. And now AI, this is very stark. This problem is very stark, because AI, the value is so big, and it will realign the whole value chain, and it has to be participatory. The contributors should get their fair share, and not just by joining those companies, right? That's how what they're saying. OpenAI will say we are a great payer. What are you talking about? No, but you have 1,000 employees, man, and you don't tell me that 1,000 employees or whatever, some small number, right? They cannot control this whole value chain of the world. Everyone wants to. We don't want to build apps. We want to participate in the main innovation cycle, and we want to participate in that. So that problem, that just by participating and building, you can participate in this big economy, is something which appeals to all three of us. uh, I think that's close to her heart. I think Shriram is also very close to this problem, although I have not discussed this with Shriram directly. But I understand eigenlayer really well, because I was doing an AVS before this, and I think eigenlayer also at the heart of it is about this economy, right? And I think eigenlayer is doing a bunch of project in digital rights as well, which lend towards this. So this problem, all three of us are on the same page. But then on the technical excitement, we have different passions. So, for example, Pramod and I had a thought about also the fact that AI is especially good for this kind of decentralized ecosystem, because to build, and this was before this reasoning and these things became so mainstream, because to build better AI, you need to have AI versus AI interactions. And we were always thinking about this evolutionary forces, and how evolution brings out intelligence, and the same kind of evolutionary forces what will it look like for AI. So technically also we felt that there's maybe a technical advantage that decentralized AI has. And there's always this question: can centralized AI not create the same advantage by hired, data labelers, hiring this, hiring that? And our thesis on that has been always that no, it cannot, because there's too much to be, too many different kind of AI and data to be unlocked. And as long as the first phase was all around data, which was also decentralized, unlocked by the internet over decades and decades. If there was no internet decentralization, then there'll be no original models also. Just keep that in mind. So even the first phase of AI came through this decades of decentralization through internet, which got all the data here. If they tried to build the same network themselves, they would not have done it. So the second phase also, I'm calling this the second phase now. Now we talk about AGI, right? I think GPT 5 onwards, 4.40 onwards is the second phase, where we are talking about reasoning plan. The second phase also, it will be even more on this kind of decentralized data. So even technical thesis is there, which Pramod and I share quite dearly. I think Sandeep also shares it, but in the beginning we were quite convinced about this. But the economic part, we are all on the same page about from day one. That's actually what got us together.
No, this is awesome. I'll play devil's advocate on your first part. on the economic
Yes.
side, right? Like,
Yes. Yeah.
so wanting the world involved in AI is not only admirable, but it feels like the way it should work, right? Most powerful technology of our generation. It will have undue influence in every app and interaction we have without us even knowing it, right? Any
Right.
bias will be extrapolated to the nth degree. But beyond like the altruistic reasons, like what are the market forces that you feel that favor the economics of crypto AI versus open AI, right? And I ask that because like clearly Meta and OpenAI, like they have way more GPUs, they have more talent, they have existing companies throwing out tons of cash flow to drive to put a ton of money into their AI um, visions. But like, what
Yeah.
is it about crypto AI that drives a more powerful economic flywheel? I guess.
Oh, okay. So what is this? So by the way, it more than a more powerful economic flywheel. What I'm saying is that the contributors get rewarded for their contributions, right? That kind of economy where it's more participatory for the community. Let's start with the compute piece because this is the one. This is the one which is put out first, right? And I'm actually with you on the compute piece. Although there are forces which are trying to get decentralized compute at par with centralized one. Compute is a hired gun. Compute is available to every project, okay, as long as it grows, as long as it does reasonable economic size. So you should hit a certain size, right? You have to, if you are compute hungry and you have the money for it, people will come and give it to you. This compute boundaries which are being projected, I feel they are only about rising to the right size. Okay, so at our size, for example, we don't start with complete compute starvation, and in fact, the next level, if we unlock, it will be even easier and easier. So this compute yeah, some boundaries are there, right? But it's not like on day one we are competing with the compute requirements of OpenAI, and either they will get it or we will get it. It's not like that. When we reach that place, that's when by that time we're already very big. So compute is a hired gun. It will be great to have cheap compute options through decentralized GPU clusters that people are talking about. My personal take on the decentralized compute is that I will use it under two conditions. I'm sort of a consumer for it. I'm looking to use it, right? I will use it, number one, if you give me something reasonable, not extraordinary, but reasonable, because I can use it for many things, inference points. And that I would say many people have because they have invested in some small site clusters. You can do fine tuning with it, and they can also give you dedicated big clusters. But second part where most people are lacking, and I would love them to catch up because the easier part, and surprisingly they are lagging there, is a software layer over it. I need a right software layer. I don't need raw GPUs. I need all the pipeline over it because I'm doing something else. I'm not going to build all of it. So that's the part. If decentralized compute picks up, then I can use them for many things as well. The centralized compute part, I will go through the same channels when I'm building, when I'm pre-training and building larger models, as any of the larger companies will go. Now, on the other pace of the economy, the part where I feel that we can differentiate, and that the difference we want to bring in, is this both variety of talent and AI, right? Like there are a lot of people who want to build AI, and they don't. All of them would not. There's no way will get a job in OpenAI or maybe Meta. But maybe, by the way, Meta is like a Meta is on a similar path with a different direction. They are not working out the economy layer because they're saying we'll work it out, but we'll give for free the model for free. We are saying that we want participatory economy in there, not just give it for free, right? It's not just activism for us, although it's not activism for Meta as well. But for us, it's not like we are giving it for free. We want to really bring an economic model there. It's the idea which was there by 2018-19. I've been saying that, and I'm internalizing it more and more. See, OpenAI was there. That was the path they were following. And then at some place they felt that there's no way to grow bigger and monetize in this open world, and they started to a different trajectory. We just want to continue in that trajectory and say that this trajectory is possible with crypto. They never tried that, and because they didn't know what, like, that they were doing other things. But now we have the power of hindsight. We have an advantage. We know a few things. We know this economy is really big. People are ready to experiment with different ways to build it. They could not have done that in 2018, right? Like, although they I mean, no one could have thought of crypto way there because the economy size was not very clear. Now it's really big, and people are ready to experiment with different things there. And Second hindsight thing that we have to our advantage is that, and this is something one could have guessed earlier as well, is that unlike search and maybe even mail, AI, the use cases are very, very different. Many, many different. It's entering everything. And so the data is not, the data kind of data needed is very, very varied. And there's some advantage in that. And extracting the data is not just like asking people and doing surveys. It's not like that. You need to build tech to get that data. In fact, you need to build models to get the data. And that's why a model company is also a data generation company. And that thesis we have, that people who help us build this model to collect data should own those and get a part in that economy. So whatever OpenAI tries to do for 1,000 people it has, we want to do for the, let's say, 100 million people who want to, let's say, 10 million people who want to participate in this economy.
Yeah, it's always really hard to imagine like what opening the new door with crypto incentives does to the world, right? Like, I mean, smart contracts with Ethereum is a pretty good comparison, right? Like you give people the ability to permissionlessly build, to be able to raise funds and to organize a community, and you can get some highly differentiated um, sort of projects, right? I feel like you're on a similar track there, but it's just hard for people to understand what that looks like because it's not live yet, right? Like if you want to use AI, you go to Perplexity, you go to ChatGPT, you go to Claude. Like it's not, it just hasn't matured yet.
Perfect, right, right. But you see that it should be like that, right? This is about who build it and how do they get reward from it. The experience should be very similar to Perplexity. I love
Mhm.
Perplexity. Perplexity shows us something, right? Like if someone came and told you we'll compete with Google on search, you would have a similar reaction, and you will give all this compute and all this, and now you're like, oh man, like this, it's possible, right? So they're the hope company, right?
So he
And
mentioned. I guess one part though I'm confused on though is like when I think of sentient, I think of, and I put a small like tweet out on this, but I view you guys more as the coordination network where people could bring their models and keep them open source, but also earn off of them, right? I never really thought of Sentient as the place where, hey, we're going to go out as a sole company and compete with Facebook and build the biggest models, right? Maybe you could clarify that for the listeners a little bit on maybe you're thinking on the econ there. I think it'll help.
yeah, that's a great question. Actually, this is more of a this is a detailed product type question, that how do we, this is like more of a business thing, not such a pure crypto thing. So in principle, so far what we have talked about, there are a few options from here on. The two options that you said are both quite feasible. Should we have others come and build models and give it to everyone, or should we build a few models and make very good AI? And and so very early we decided that Sentient is an AI company and it will build models. Our protocol will allow eventually to allow others to do the same, but we feel it's too early. It's like to say that, ha, you can come and bring models, but I think there is it's very hard for people, because that's the problem we are solving, so we know how hard it is. It's very hard for people to coordinate efforts to get others to build models. So Sentient is a model company, and we'll build our models and give it to others. And if you like what you do, you can use the Sentient protocol to do the same thing for yourself. So that's the way I think of it. Because you can, it's easy to say that others can bring and get their models and monetize it, but I feel that that's a very different path. And maybe one way to think of it is a GTM strategy, that we want to be, for the initial phase, we want to be the company who's providing the AI and building the models, because
No,
we want to, as I said, the thing with AI is it's a working creature. No matter what I tell you and what I do, you first will compare me on quality with OpenAI. Maybe you'll give me some elbow room,
mhm.
some slack, but then at some point you will say, dude, like, look at this thing, it works so well, and tell me what you have. And and that's very important, because it should not be that crypto has got in the way of great AI.
No, I want to go down each of these paths because now it's super interesting, right? Let's start with we're going to build models and we're going to win, right? Like,
Yeah,
I don't want to harp on being devil's advocate, but I think everyone's going to ask you the same question, right? Like, it's just the Web2 companies have so much money, right? Like,
yeah.
they're already pretty far ahead. Like, how do you inflect that? Like, how do you, even like as a V1, how do you show the world that, hey, we can do this? We can create something through crypto incentives and the world in a distributed manner, that's competitive. How do you build that?
No, so first let's work out from first principles, right? Do you think the best of AI is done or it's ahead? Right, that's the first question. So first, we all agree that the reason that there's a upgraded model every 6 months means that it's just beginning, right? How often are the search algorithms being upgraded now? The fundamentals of it, right? Like the way the ranking is done and all, it's not being upgraded. And maybe some new data is scrapped all the time. That makes sense, but it's not like stable technologies don't change so often, right? So this is just the beginning. And the first phase that we saw is that, as I said, that what can be done with the internet data, and this is a brilliant, like it's one of the amazing stories, right? The way AI came and the problem it solved are all surprising, even to those who have been looking at AI for a long time. I think they could have been many other guesses about what will work in AI first at consumer scale, and this kind of chatbot being that, I would not have guessed it. So that's brilliant. GPU playing a role is brilliant. So all this surprising thing happened, and from that we got this large model, right, which is now available. Llama is giving away for free, right? Now, based on that, a lot of people can create different kind of values. And again, applications like Perplexity are example of that. That suddenly they started challenging established companies because this is a powerful thing. Now, what's the phase after this? What's the difference between GPT-4 and GPT-5? There are a lot of things, rumors around it. But the first part about this is that it's not done. Neither GPT-5 is the final GPT, nor GPT-4 is even close to GPT-5. Right? So there are a lot of lands to be grabbed there. And this is where the thesis comes in. So the question is this war to be won by money? The answer there is that I think there is a lot of value in decentralization. Think of building the internet, right? If a centralized company, I don't know, Microsoft at that time, right? It was well positioned to start saying, I will build the internet. And there's no need to go to the internet. We will set up the servers everywhere in the world, right? At least in the US and then in the world. And this is the internet. Why go to all this? Why have so many websites? We can build everything you need, right? And and they had the money. Maybe someone even more powerful could have had that vision, and it could have been viewed as threatening if they moved at that pace. But the VC was not of same style. VC, the capital was not in same style then, so they didn't do that. But I think that could have been done the moment they started this thing. But you know that it's not possible to capture this whole human knowledge in this one company, man. It has to be. So the next phase of AI is a lot about this human knowledge capturing. It's gonna be about every heuristic you and I have of different nature, of different types. I can't believe a single company can capture it. I don't think it's a single innovation. This next layer of AI, we talk about reasoning. Uh, Predicting next model is a singular innovation, and you can throw capital in it. Reasoning is not a singular thing. Reasoning comes in many varieties. The data is not there. The data has to be collected. A lot of things have to be done. There's a lot of scope there. So naturally, I feel that this is a thing meant for many people to innovate on, not a singular company. Now, the other part about capital, which may worry you, is that to build these large models, it takes a lot of capital, and that's a very important worry. And then the question is, how do people decide to build large models, and when do they start making this uh, $2 million, $10 million, $50 million bets? What are these experiments? And that is something that's to be done in stages. So typically the recipe has been for everyone is that you have a thesis, you're now convinced that this part of the knowledge has to go in pre-training and not fine-tuning. So first, and it's something which will be memorized, right? Fine tuning doesn't have that kind of memorization. Now you know some basic heuristics which you want to be embedded as memorization in pre-training. So first, you validate that thesis on a small model, train a small model, cheap, see if give good result. Great, some small model done. Do the last bigger experiment. Do the bigger experiment. It's not a day one you start and you know, okay, next 3 months I'm gonna burn $10 million and I'll have an output and then I'll see how it looks. It's not like that. It's not like that. It
Well, no, it
so,
makes sense. I mean, sorry, keep
so
going.
right. So I'm just saying that the time at which we need this capital, before that time, we would already have what it takes to deserve that capital. So I'm not saying we won't. The question is not about availability of capital. The question is about access to the capital, and the access to the capital happens when you looks like when you have the right thing to solve. And so we why do we think that we won't access the same capital in different ways, right? So it is capital hungry because the returns are very high, and we will need and access that capital when needed.
That's totally fair. And sorry to interrupt you before, but the the people segment is very interesting. I think we should continue discussing that part. So
Absolutely.
basically, basically my understanding is that your view is that, and Sentient's view is that, you know, a couple dozen really smart people or a couple hundred really smart people in an AI company is not enough to solve AGI or not enough to solve the next iteration of AI. And we need a protocol that's literally the beneficiary of anyone coming to give their technological breakthroughs on models, on data labeling, on inference, on any part of the stack, right? Which is interesting. My key question for you is, when I talk to AI folks in San Francisco, most of them hate crypto, right? It's really hard to convince them to come over, and the smart ones do, right? Like News Research is crushing it. You guys as well, like similar wavelengths. How do you sell this vision to them? Like, what do you say to attract them to Sentient to bring their technological revolutions versus go apply to OpenAI?
Okay. All right. So when you say that people hate crypto, but by the way, you are a sort of veteran. I'm just 4 years into crypto. As I said, I've been long time into blockchain, but
I'm getting
uh,
old.
yeah, 4 years into crypto. But I've been crypto curious for a long time. For example, I read the Bitcoin paper very early, and
Nice.
and it and I'll give you that valley perspective because I used to have it, right. Uh, they have no clue the cultural aspect of it. They have no clue, right? So they're coming from somewhere else. So when you say, I actually don't agree with what you just said about valley guys and AI guys. I think the worry about crypto is something else. It's not about tech. The discussion is not tech at all. The discussion is, oh, crypto, why do I need crypto? I have a bloody 1.5 million salary and whatnot, right? Like, and I'm already settled because these people are people who are somewhere else in their career. So one thing I want to make sure point out very quickly is that the real alpha of innovation, and this I believe as a faculty professor, whatever, as is among the younger guys, because older guys are doing what they know. They are not gonna leave or change. They will keep on building, growing transformers. Okay, so you need some to show some muscles and all that to scale, but but anything interesting, new models will come from the younger guys, and 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 younger guys I think are not so close to crypto. That's what my experience has been. Second point here is that it's crypto or not, it's about building AI. And it's about saying that do you today have a venue to push out a model and own a part of that economy? Naval's idea of companies being union of entrepreneur in 20 years from now, like that thesis resonates with people. That resonates with anyone who drops out from Stanford early on. Resonates with most of this generation, especially those who are not struggling on basics in life. It resonates with them. They don't want to start at the bottom and and that group is growing more so with AI because building has become so easier. So it's quite naturally aligned with that generation who wants to directly jump into entrepreneurship with what they build, and they want to build more and more higher value pieces. And before you start building GPUs, this is the highest value piece, the models, and you get close to it. And these are the people who you I don't feel the same. I haven't received the same pushback. I have received the same pushback, you're right, from my very close friends who will be at a position in a big company, but I don't think they'll move for anything else. Forget crypto. Will they move to a different
Yeah,
job?
they're
The
too
people you're
comfortable.
talking to, they're
Yeah,
too comfortable,
no, they're
and
too comfy. Yeah,
yeah, too comfortable. And the life is good. They wake up at a certain time and drop the kids to school and all that. So I'm
yeah.
just
I
like,
mean, why
yeah.
leave?
So this
That
narrative is not for those guys, I think. And this whole thing is for the next generation, and people who are 21-year-olds or maybe 18-year-olds, right? Those are the guys who will be open to this. Are open to this, by the
no,
way.
no, it's a great answer because in my mind, I'm thinking through how does crypto AI attract, you know, on average, the best talent over the next 10 years, right? Maybe not just one researcher or two, but how do we attract that marginal, fantastic researcher, right? And when I think about it, I always just sort of, my mental model always just goes back to like this idea of, OpenAI, profiting for their shareholders and controlling some all powerful base model and all the apps built on top is scary, right? And I'm always asking people like you and others, like, do you think at scale that resonates with AI researchers? Like, will they come to Sentient because they don't want to build that world and they're scared about it? What do you think?
I mean, that's the mission we are after. This has to resonate, and I that's what I said. This is a different podcast, but let me just say it. The theory is very close to me because if you think about it, right, like how open source is not so old. The I think this is the third phase of open source. So I think of early open source software. Most of it was driven by activism. Okay, they were activists. Actually, financially, they were great activists. They changed the world, right? Like they basically building software and giving it away for free. Your life's work given away for free, change the world, right? In some sense, but they were activists, and their financial security either was absent, they could take it, although not. In most cases, they worked for very big companies. All the great open source contributors worked for eventually worked for Google or one of these companies. Okay, so there was no financial thought process, activism driven open source. And so it's for some select few who can afford it, who think that way. It's not the masses. Okay. Next phase is this whole social media and the proliferation of internet, and which is I always think that the crypto economy is a corollary to social media as well, right? That you can now connect to masses, and why not create value around it? Because communication is so easy, to connect to people is so easy. So why don't you find people who agree on your economic value? This thing happened after open source. This is in some sense it's a different notion of it. It's not open source, but it's the opening of the other friction around how do you reach, how do you collect people. And now comes this AI where even the value, like you can have very high value thing in software. I feel this is the highest value unlocked by software. You can have very high value assets built by software, which can be made open source with these rails available for this thing. So now let's reach to everyone who do not have any activism in them. They just like building, and what they build, they want to monetize. If they close, then you can close, but you are so small and petty, and you basically stand out of this. Then you have to build a different path. That's a possible path. But if you keep it open, then a lot of value can be created by you coming together. So we should now revisit and try to solve this monetization problem of open source. The time is now. AI is the great reason to solve it. One could have solved it with the first generation of open source as well. It's just that there was no reason, the economic size was not clear, and people were doing it from the group was small, mostly activists. These are a different time. This open source is not just for activism. This open source, why does a college graduate now put up their models in open? It's not any activism or to change the world. It's to make its CV, its profile, and show that, hey, I have all these models available. And right now they have a very indirect path. Let me make my CV and find a job here and there. But if they could monetize it with much more stake right away, that they would do it. They will get their financial independence early on if they could write about it, rather than waiting for the cycle, which is so long. So I'm saying this is the right time to solve this open source problem. And that's the human and talent pool I'm talking about. And that is a completely different path from what someone who joins OpenAI after working for, or let's say Databricks after working at OpenAI. Now I know a lot of people also are moving in this direction and that direction. Very different people.
No, it. I mean, it's awesome to think through. I mean, it's coming together a bit on the thesis, right? Like, if you're a college graduate and you're able to create AI models, which obviously is very hard, right? I'm not talking maybe fine-tune models, maybe a new type of model, whatever. What you're saying is that if they don't get a job at OpenAI or, Claude or sorry, Anthropic or Perplexity, one of these companies, what is their alternative if not for Sentient? What do they do? Like, where do they go?
Yeah, and that's what we are saying, that basically there's a huge gap. Suddenly you are at a very low level of valuation. You can build apps, and you can do that, and but people keep on pushing, and this is like that's the amazing, and Hugging Face shows that, like, people are pushing, they're putting out, and with very limited resources, right? The first thing you do is you clone something and start showing I can also set it up, and that just flag in the sand. Everyone is pushing, right? And there's a certain type of people, I think they're growing, and I'm very excited about it, because I've seen the opposite kind of people who know much more but won't do, and these are the doers in some sense. So like, there are a lot of people who there are hundreds of people who directly jump into it, and there are thousands of people who keep on asking, how do I make a career in AI? Well, you look at this 100 guys, man. They just start by doing it, and they have a career in AI, and it's very open
I,
actually.
I know. I want to ask on the OML models because it's a good segue, but I want to ask one other question first. Like a big thesis point for Sentient is the ability to attract and incentivize and bring forward the AI developers around the world, right?
Yeah.
If you have an AI developer, let's say they're 20 years old, she creates a killer model, right? A competitor to the Transformers model, right? Something revolutionary. How do we make sure that when she submits that to the Sentient network, that it gets, noticed, it gets visibility? Like, how do we know that we're not losing in this sea of complexity, right? That we're finding and locating the top talent within the Sentient
Uh,
protocol.
okay, that's a slightly different question than what I was thinking. So basically, you're saying what happens to the personal reputation of each individual. Uh,
Uh kind of. I'm just so if there's, if Sentient is successful and we have, tens of thousands or more contributors around the world, right?
yeah,
And somebody makes a fantastic contribution to better
right,
the model in the network. How do
right,
we make sure that that's found and that's surfaced, right? That doesn't get
right.
lost.
So first thing we want to solve is the monetization problem, in the sense that if it's openly available and it has this thing, how can one monetize and reward them based on their contribution? So in the early stages, right, I'm not thinking of, as I said, everyone getting their own model. I'm thinking of people who have contributed, come together and build. I mean, that's a more practical way to think of models. Like, models are built by, already even the existing models are built by contributions by various sources. And for example, people who wrote those Reddit threads, which were mined to build that model, were contributors. But then the people who, the data team which filters it, and then various models are fine tuned. Some planners are built for something. A lot of models go into building what looks like a singular model. So first, think of those people. That's one part of the problem, and how can their contribution be monetized? And second part is what you are saying, that hey, if there are so many things like Hugging Face, then how do I stand out in this thing crowd? And for that, the second question, I don't have a great answer beyond what's around. I mean, that's how you stand out on Twitter, Tom. You know how that's standing up. That's
Yeah,
basically. I mean, that's actually the new world. People are. I think, in fact, that problem is solved. If you have done something good and you just want recognition for that, just a recognition, reputation, there are a lot of channels for it. That's somewhat the creator economy has also gotten there. The problem is that, can the actual asset itself be claimed and monetized? Right. That's the problem we are looking at. That reputation, maybe you can build on it, but can I monetize what I have built? And because reputation people build for CV as well, and then they go for this indirect channel, they don't monetize it, right? In some sense, everyone puts their GitHub profile or Hugging Face profile on their CV, and now you can go and see their commits in the GitHub, and some hacker rank would be there, and that's their reputation, which they use to get a Google job, from which they actually participate in AI economy, right? Like, that's quite indirect. And what we are trying to solve is direct participation by contributing. And so the problem we are solving is, how do we monetize these contributions, and how do we make sure that the contributors are fairly rewarded? That's the
I
problem we are
no,
solving.
I love that. It's the model selection side and making sure smart people get visibility is definitely hard to solve. But like, just logically, it's easier for that person to get surfaced in an open network than it is if they're than it is if surfacing it requires having a job at a centralized company, right? Because like the door
Absolutely.
is already locked. Um, and then the monetization side, let's definitely dive into the OML side. Um, I want to dig in there. I think people will be pretty interested because you just released your report and your findings. Let's dive in there. It's a perfect segue.
Right. So, yeah, so OML stands for Open Monetizable Loyal uh, Models and Other Artifacts. Okay, so that's what we started to build. That can we build this open models which can be openly shared. Uh, for a for a simple mental picture, one can just think of models that can be downloaded and deployed. So they are open if you can download and deploy them, right? That's a There are various definitions of open. Let's go with just this one. You download and deploy. Okay, so I'm free to fine tune them. I'm free to use them that way. They are monetizable in the sense that when they are used, people who help build them get the money, they get rewarded. Right? So that's what monetizable means. And loyal is a very high bar. Loyal is someone who just you take it out of the environment, completely different place, but they never not do what they are not supposed to do. So they're always loyal to the builder, and even alignment of the model and safety rules of the model are all tied to what the builders preferred. Okay, that's the high bar uh, of this model. So it's sort of a contradictory thing that one can target these open models which are monetizable and loyal. If you're open, you have taken them away, and what's left. So that's what we wanted to solve. Okay, that's the problem we want to solve. We want to build this OML models. And if you think about it, and it's not just us, many projects are already talking about user owned, community owned AI and all that, right? Community built AI is what we call it. It's a similar thing, right? And the reason everyone can get excited about it is because the moment you see blockchain, you understand this is a like crypto can solve this. On contract, we can track things and we can follow what's going on. That part is a low hanging fruit, won't take much effort to do it. The difficult part there is how the hell do I tie to what's happening on chain for anything, for ownership or whatever, to the actual asset, to the actual artifact, right? The model, which will be off chain and somewhere, right? How are these two things tied? It's fragmented. So you can on chain keep on saying this guy owns it, that guy owns it, and they should be rewarded. But how do you actually tie it to the actual model being used and copied? Just it's a weight file one can copy and run it again. How do you tie these two things together? So that's the problem we wanted to solve. And the moment I put it this way, the first solution pops out. The first solution which you will think of it, well, let's use this TEE. Let's put it in hardware where we all like it and it will just behave according to that hardware. So that can be one line of solution for this. The problem with that solution is that lot has to be done. It's for within TE itself. It's a solution, and in fact, we have collaborators building a solution based on TE. But that's a solution, and it requires a lot of work to be able to use models within a TE environment. For example, you will. It's not like a model is accessed by a single script. You can write all those Python codes in different variety of forms, right? And when you're trying fine tuning, and still the model should remain secure. So it requires a lot of development. It requires some DSL which will still remain secure and all that. So, but that's a path. That path can be taken. For us, from day one, we want to take a slightly more magical path. Our thesis is that we are still thinking about how we are used to think in crypto, that it's a 0-1 thing, that we want to prove every computation, we want to lock it cryptographically. But AI is something else. If it's performing at 50%, it's not called AI. If it's performing at 60, 70%, it's called AI, right? So if you make sure that to get the full performance you need something from the protocol, then you're done. You just have to make sure that it doesn't work so well. Unless when you say that you want to monetize the model, maybe they can copy and get a worse version of the model. Maybe they can get out and have a model which is less performing. But less performing AI is no AI. And because it's all about the accuracy, right? So can we develop some AI native cryptography which is used to lock the model? So the cute observation here that we made for the first version of OML, which is what we released, this first version of OML is open, can monetize, but it's not loyal. The cute observation we made is that there is already something that can be put in the model. It's like a basic primitive of this world, which can be put in the model. It's hard to detect, but someone who knows some secret about it can quickly come and check it. Okay, and these some things are called backdoors. It was an attack on the models where people wanted models to behave differently, so they will hide some special prompts. It's like I don't know if you've seen Manchurian Candidate. It's
Great
like,
movie. Of
of
course.
course,
Yeah.
it's one of the greatest. But you remember that you can trigger that prompt, and then the guy
Lee
becomes
Schreiber.
yeah.
Yep. I
So,
remember. I
so
think it
it's
was
like
Lee
that
Schreiber.
prompt.
Yeah.
It's like that prompt. You can ask that, and 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 then it says something else. Then it says a specific thing. So you can hide this prompt, and this is the basic primitive around which OML is designed. It's a simple, cute thing that there is already within models the possibility of placing a query and a response, which is very specific to that model. We can do that. We can design this any way we want, and you can ask that query because the model is deployed. Easy to ask that query. You don't even need the weights, and the response can be used to identify the model, to check if things are going correctly, to check that you have accessed exactly this model. With this primitive, playing around with this primitive, we designed the full protocol, which we call OML 1.0. And this 1.0 doesn't ensure loyalty, but what it will be able to do is that it requires anyone deploying this model to take signature in batch for queries, and only then, like whenever they are giving response, they should check and take permission in batch from the protocol. And whenever they take this permission, all monetization can happen around it. If they don't do that, then some watchers can check and prove in a trust-free manner that this model is giving access without taking permission from the protocol. And then you can build a crypto economic defense around it. And this is something one can do as an AVS on eigen layer or whatever they want to do around it. There's a simple solution, and then many things can be done around it. There are a lot of questions about how these queries are saved, but the one takeaway lesson I wanted to have is that just like every crypto thing has a basic primitive, the most basic primitive that we are talking about in AI is this fingerprints, the backdoors, which can be tuned into the model and design them creatively, and you can do many magical things with them.
It Let me feed this back to you because I think this is just mega important, right? So you guys realized early on that there's already thousands, millions of models actually on Hugging Face and otherwise, and these people just don't have any way to enforce revenue or incentive flow. Like they spend tons of money to train these models, tons on data, fine tuning, the whole nine yards. They upload to Hugging Face, and it's altruistic. I mean, just starting there, like that is crazy. Like, don't those people want to earn money off their models? Like, I don't get it. Like, why? Like, why is it so active despite no? And it's great for the supply for you guys because you could onboard them and give them revenue, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a talent we want to go to, right? Like that, Hugging Face has done a great job. Llama has done a great job. They have bootstrapped this whole ecosystem, and one
Yeah,
should build on it.
it just seems like a logical de-risk next step. Like millions of miles on Hugging Face, put them on Sentient and earn revenue, right? It seems like it's relatively de-risked if you could convince them.
This can be one of the approaches, but we are being a little bit more ambitious. So rather than saying that you monetize right away, we are taking the path of aligning them to a more singular cause about what models should be taken out first. So the sentient models, we want to compete in offering level with this. And if in fact that's what you're saying is perfectly correct, if there are models on Hugging Face which are already at that level, then they should be incubated within sentient, and that's a
Mhm.
valid thing. And we reach out to that ecosystem. It's exactly what you said, that this is the starting point. You look at Hugging Face, look at all these models sitting there, and you realize that these guys have built these models to get reputation for their CV so that they can do something else. And instead of that, why don't make it more direct? What will it take to make it more direct for the best of them? And and that's what this protocol is all about.
I mean, one of the easiest reasons to take your model and, you know, pivot it to an OML model on Sentient is just access to distribution, right? Access to that, whatever that end use case is, whether it's a DeFi AI bot or a chat GPT comparison someone's playing monthly for. If somebody has a great model, it gets surfaced and ranked and it's on the network. I mean, my understanding is that's the reason you add a model to Sentient, I think.
Right? Yeah. Distribution is a very important part of it. That's what we offer, and that's why we need. Uh, I mean, from the protocol side, the protocol has to make sure that the models can be onboarded, but that's why we need a very vibrant ecosystem. And I don't know if you see how Sentient is organized. So I'm on the core protocol side, but Census is looking at the ecosystem side, and that's a company bootstrapping this whole ecosystem around Sentient.
Himanshu, could I maybe just to recap the flow here? So let me just give you my understanding and correct me where I'm wrong just for the listeners. But I'm a developer. I upload a model to the network, right? It's converted to this OML format, which is your native format. It takes this backdoor attack that you found and it fingerprints the model. Now anybody could download this model, use it locally, the whole nine yards. But when you ask the local model a question, first it has to go to the network to be, I guess, sort of decrypted from the fingerprinting you added in, so that it could correctly answer a question. You guys could track the revenue flow. Is that sort of like a broad stroke on how it's working?
It's almost correct, but just one small thing is that it doesn't have to go just before answering. At the end of the day, you can have a settlement cycle, which is some periodic thing. You can collect all the things and batch them and send it. And as long as that every settlement cycle I'm getting all the queries, I will not be. I'm happy, and there'll be no dispute, and there'll be no dispute resolution.
Got it. So there's no increase in latency, which is
Exactly.
a key
Exactly. Exactly.
consideration.
Exactly.
Okay, so at the end of the day, people can release open source, open weight models, and you're solving the ability to effectively track and monetize. I mean, that's incredible. That's a huge innovation in and of itself. I think it's massive.
Yeah, that keeps us excited. Yeah, and this week the white paper also comes out, so we're quite excited about it.
All right, I got one more devil's advocate question. Don't kill me when you see me in
Oh,
person,
these
but
are the best
it's
ones. Like
exciting to learn about. Thank you.
what doesn't kill me
So
make me stronger. Yeah.
no, I'm sure you'll have a great answer for it. But the whole OML model side, open source models, we could effectively monetize, track the revenue flow, attract developers. That all makes perfect sense. And then we open the podcast with, Sentient will also build its own models, right, and compete. So how do we put these two together? Like how is we're going to build our own models with the tracking of other people's models. Is it two different sides of the protocol, or is it one and the same?
Okay. So we are not starting with the other people model bit right now. So the question one should go into is, how did those models come? The other people model that have been put up. What goes into it, right? And you would see that a lot of activities go into building a good model. So one has to collect data, filter data, then you train some smaller model and all that whole thing. That whole process, if you're actually building some useful AI, so Sentient has some useful AI it's targeting in the beginning, takes a lot of collaborative effort. As that collaborative effort is happening, you give every contributor ownership, partial ownership of the model. And then you OMLize the model and release it through Sentient. These are sentient models. And when it's used, because this is the easy part, once you can get it to the protocol, then protocol need not just pay one person. It can actually do fancy things, right? It can, based on who has how much ownership of the model, based on that, it can distribute the rewards, right? So that's how the contributor gets rewarded. So sentient models are these community build models orchestrated at different times through different type of campaigns. And similar efforts have happened at universities. So Sivong, one of our the head of our AI research, earlier at UWash ran this campaign called DataComp, which was a campaign to build AI models, clip model, famously ground up by collecting data and fine tuning. And there are various variants of that model, of that campaign that took up. In fact, that piece is taken over by a large part of it by Apple Intelligence, which is doing the same thing for small models. So this community build model means you orchestrate the community towards a goal, and people, when they come and contribute based on some rules that you set up, they get rewarded ownership of that model. You can have you
Got
can have hybrid reward models, but let give them pre-compute and all, but give them ownership of that model also. Of course, you can set rules upfront about what kind of ownership is kept with the host, the initial host of the model, who brings the base one, and then for each task, what kind of ownership will be distributed. All that programmability is easy, and we offer that on our contracts. And now through this models get built, and
That's
those are the
cool.
models we're
I,
talking about.
yeah, I mean, I would definitely. It's interesting because like I want ownership in the models I'm making, but like I could care less about the models like other people are making, right? Like I don't know anything about them. Why should I own any of that? So I guess the breaking it down and keeping it modular makes sense.
Right, right, and the yeah, exactly. So, well, they're builders own the models, and of course, that's outside scope of the protocol. What happens to the builder ownership? Of course, it's a tokenized ownership, and if in the middle they lose trust in the project, or they want to do something else, they can dilute that ownership.
Cool. That makes sense. Well, let's move on to some of the fun stuff. What should people look for, right? Like when do people get involved in Sentient? Like when could we start using it? When could we upload models? Like when does this all happen?
Great. So first is the white paper release, which is now when you can read about
I'm
us.
jumping
But
ahead.
that's not the
I'm
fun.
jumping
That's
way
not
ahead
the fun.
here.
Yeah. Then the next big event for us is DevCon. By DevCon, a version of the platform, a demo version, would be out, and people would start playing around with it. That's how we are seeing it right now. And in the middle, we have a bunch of hackathons coming along in Valley and in other parts of the world. So you will start experiencing it in some limited circles. That's how we are seeing it.
Cool. When is DevCon? Is that
November
I don't even
11th,
know when that
12th.
is.
Yeah, second week of November.
Okay. So coming up. So pressure's on.
Always,
We
man.
well,
Like,
we got stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's the thing about
um,
crypto. Pressure is always on.
I mean, it really is. Let's move on to some of your just some of your own personal views on AGI and AI, right? Like, I'll throw you a couple lobs here. We could take this any way you want, but I mean, there's a lot of conversations about, how far away AGI is, how powerful it will be, what you and I will do all day if this thing is doing everything for us. Like, do we just go play Ultimate Frisbee all day and get UBI? Like, what are your personal takes on what life looks like with an AGI world?
Okay, so uh, for me, AGI to begin with, you can like it can be defined. Okay, and every person can have a different definition. So I was going with a particular definition of AGI, and I would say that's a rather modest definition. The modest definition of AGI I have is that something which can solve tasks with high accuracy, AI which can solve end-to-end tasks with high accuracy. So you see that this AI has this dichotomy that grid applications like Google Map are at 98% accuracy, and AI looks great when it has 70% accuracy, 65% accuracy. So what is this greatness? This greatness is about its creativity, the fact that it can talk with you. Taking it from there to closing, let's say, sales or solving customer issues or whatever boring application people have in mind, uh, or debugging software, right? And writing code, right? Very high accuracy stuff, right? That each of these things is a realization of AGI for me. Although now you can say it should do 5 things to call it an AGI or 10 things, some benchmark like that you can have, but it's roughly that. So that's firstly what AGI is for me. So one version of AGI, which I'm pretty sure enters all our lives, will enter all our lives in the next not 10 years but 5 years, is that all the things around you will already have this kind of AGI sitting in it, one way or the other. This co-pilots, which are doing one thing or the other. Maybe it will be as simple as this email composer, the autocomplete that we got used to. It will become something much more simple. It will be so simple, it will be out of your way, and that will be the first version of AGI, and it will be in so many different things. And you will be like, yeah, this is fine, but this is not complete, and there should be this and that. But there'll be so many of those things. For example, suddenly, if imagine if from 2006 you suddenly dropped into this whatever self-driving car, Tesla self-driving car, you will call it self-driving. But now I know that my German friends are saying this is not self-driving, this is assist driving, this is that and that. Yeah, these are nuances because your bar has gone up. But if you brought someone from the right time, let's say just 10 years ago, they will call this self-driving. This looks self-driving. It's going at it's going at very high speed on a highway with so many lanes. Why won't you call it self-driving? Right? So this notion of AGI will be normalized more and more. Second aspect of this is that there'll be a lot left still. um, Humans have always shown that there is more to our brain than what we can use, and our intelligence grows with the tools that we have. That I very strongly believe in. And or you, I don't know, you only have to see kids to understand this. The
No,
effort
that's
it
a hell of
takes.
a take. Yeah.
Yeah, we always, our intelligence grows with the tools that we have. And so if you give me more tools, I'll have more meta heuristics to use them more creatively. It's not, I'm not limited in my intelligence to that way. I have a this meta notion of it. And now the question is, can one have this meta intelligence to overtake humans? uh, I feel this is a very philosophical question. I feel that the high level answer I can have for it, maybe I'm not competent on this, but my high level answer is there's no way. AGI can be dangerous. It need not beat humans in every aspect to become dangerous. That's a different aspect of it. It can hack, it can take over nuclear plants. All that danger is true. You should defend against that. But to say that will humans be relevant is, I feel humans are super relevant. And that's one thing which amazed me. I was just thinking a few days back about how crazy maths has been. Elon keeps on saying that, uh, like as a species, we should go outside our planet, right? That's something we should do, and that's an impactful thing because that's a universal scale thing that we did to ourselves. And I was thinking, maths made people do that. Like it extended the extent of species. It grew life in that way. And what is surprising is math is also growing life in another way. It's creating the next level of intelligence. And we always thought it's the mechanical tools and this and that, but it's becoming this algorithms and this AI which will help human now solve more things. For example, if AI will solve, let's say, some long-standing open problems in maths. Like just an example, right? Like because the grand puzzles and humanity has been obsessed with them for hundreds of years. Suppose it solves them. I believe it will solve with human assistance, and that will be a breakthrough. And and then we don't solve those problems. Then we look at the next problems. So then we use it for solving, discovering drugs, longevity. I'm pretty sure we can use it for our benefit that way. We will always stay ahead. But that doesn't rule out the safety part of it. Safety part is completely complementary. Even even at a lower level of intelligence, the dangers are pretty high, and that's a different aspect of it.
I mean, I think your take on AGI being this slow grind where, it gets embedded in Google email and Google search and, in Telegram and Twitter, and we start to get accustomed to it. I think that's a relatively unique take because when I talk to people, it's always like AGI is going to hit the scene and your life's over and it's going to change. Schwarzenegger comes back from the future, right? Like it's it seems like a pretty unique take.
Yeah, let's see about that. Like, I don't think it solves all because there are too many different heuristics there. I don't think it solves all problem in one go this way. There is no one answer.
Mhm. And the your IQ thing with tools is pretty interesting because there's a couple like sci-fi ideas around this, right? Like at a very basic level, it's like an AI companion through K through 12 of school, and it teaches you in ways that only you learn the best at, right? And clearly you're skipping grades at this point and getting way smarter. The other sci-fi aspect is just that the parameters in the model are like artificial neurons in our brain, right? Like you're just expanding your brain capacity with those neurons. I don't know how,
Yeah.
how real that is or not, but I guess by
No, no,
association with the tool,
that's
it's kind
the
of true.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm like I'm not none. It doesn't contradict both of those things. Don't contradict what I'm saying. I'm just saying that this is an expansion of the life form itself, and we will grow from it. It's an inevitable thing. So if you think of one objective function, let's think of rational explanation for the universe, and that's just survival. That's just survival. Okay, let's say the species is built just for survival, and so it has to escape this planet, and it has to become more intelligent than itself, right? So that's just survival, right? It can exist forever. The personas can exist forever, and it can grow, and it can grow. So it sounds like a natural thing to be discovered towards survival.
That is pretty. Yeah, I've always wondered like, will AI leave the Earth? Because by leaving Earth, it's basically saying I don't want these, billions of GPU plants to make myself smarter. I'm okay with the level I'm at, and I'm risking that to leave. I don't know how it'll decide that, but I'm curious to see how that pans out. We'll see.
And energy is the next. I mean, GPU always reminds me of when I think of this first principle things. Obviously, energy is the next frontier. I always feel that again, it happened at a cost of very high energy. Amazing that this revolution came, but surprisingly, still at the cost of very high energy. Nuclear, energy related thing. All the breakthroughs, somehow the energy part, I still feel we haven't broken that barrier. That will be
Yeah,
the
it is.
very exciting part.
Do you think governments will just green light nuclear around the world to catch up in AI? Like, do you think it'll like it's big enough and it's important enough that it'll
I
drive
think
that
so.
change?
I think it's possible because I hear that in some countries. So for sure, that's possible. I think so. I think so. This energy becoming, maybe it's wrong. It's a very simplistic take. I always thought energy was an internal matter of a country. Somehow it's some reputation and somehow internal. Okay, we know it helps the GDP. We know it's directly correlated with GDP and all, but it's internal, felt internal. Never defense and external. AI made energy an external and defense issue. so so
Yeah,
and countries are known to spend uh, disproportionate amount when it comes to a defense issue. So so I feel that this may be true. What you're saying is true.
we're gonna have mini reactors all over the place, just training our local models. It'll be fun.
Yeah, and the
Well,
AI used to
Himanshu,
control them.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting. A lot of pollution, but Himanshu, I had a blast talking to you. I mean, we're proud to be investors in you guys, and we're really excited for the future of Sentient. So, thank you so much for coming on, and let's do this again, maybe after DevCon or whenever you'd like.
My pleasure, Tommy. Would be happy to come back anytime.